non-physical beings with consciousness, power, a psychological power. All these was explained by Sri Aurobindo in a series of monthly articles 1914 to 1916, which later on was published by Secret of Veda, all of you may know. And the Devas, Agni, the psychological power of divine willpower, and Indra, the divine mind. And Aurobindo said that this chanting of the mantras or the conduct of the yajnas has an inner meaning, while the external meaning is the yajnas to perform the yajna to get the material prosperity, benefit, whatever phala is assigned for that yajna. Aravinda said that the outer yajna has an inner meaning. So what is that inner meaning? The inner meaning is an invitation to gods. What these Veda mantras, as a priest comes and allows us to perform a yajna, say you want to do a Gana Homa for removal of obstacles, whatever be the reason, and you may think that this Ganapati is going to remove your obstacles. If you want to settle just your immediate obstacles to be removed, Ganapati or that energy will do that as well, because the chanting of the mantra, you are inviting that energy, and that energy will go wherever you are invited, and it will remove that. But what it says is, Aravinda said, the outer yajna, you can stop there, which means you are settling for less. You can ask, you can get more. And what is that more? You can invite the Deva to yourself. The inner meaning of the outer yajna is an invitation to the Deva, and who in turn will place an emanation of the psychological power of that Deva. So if you are chanting a mantra for Agni, for example, the well-known mantra, the very first mantra of Rigveda, Agni me ele purohitam yajnasya deva mritvijam hota aram ratnadatamam. That mantra, when you chant, thinking about the energy, the Agni energy, or the divine willpower energy, then this spirit or this Deva, whatever you call it, if you want to consider them as a Deva or as a God, the God is not an exact translation, but the Deva, the power of light. This Deva they have psychological power, and they can place a small emanation of their psychological power. And with continued chanting or continued performance of the yajna, this emanation grows, and it becomes the full power of the Deva will be attained. So you become spiritualized or divinized. One can invite as many Devas. Agni is the power of willpower. Indra is the power of divine mind. So Agni and Indra together have about 2,000 plus 2,100, about 4,500 mantras out of 10,552 mantras in Rig Veda are for these two gods. Because the two most important things that you need, if you want to succeed in any work, you need to have willpower, determination. Otherwise, what will happen is all of us will start with a great enthusiasm. After 1 or 2 weeks, when the work associated with that becomes more, it is too complicated or too tough, we drop it. Why we drop it? Because we do not have the willpower. So by inviting Agni, by chanting the mantra for Agni, the emanation of divine willpower will be there. That willpower can see for the long-term benefit for you also. And this process, by chanting of the mantra or listening to the mantra or by conducting the yajna, one can spiritualize or divinize oneself. Then an associated point that Aurobindo made again is, again taking a Rigveda mantra, Prithivya Saptadamabihi. This whole Prithvi or the whole universe that we see is in Saptadamabihi. Sapta, seven. Seven dhamas or regions. and their names Bhu, Bhuvaha, Stuvaha, Mahaha, Janaha, Tapaha, Satyam. And when we do the pranayama, Om Bhu, Om Bhuvaha, Ogum Suvaha, Om Mahaha, Om Janaha, Om Tapaha, Ogum Satyam. These are the 7 levels. You are sending your inhalation to those to get divinized. That is the purpose of the pranayama. So each loga has an associated consciousness level associated with this. The first or bhu level or earth level has consciousness of matter or truth mixed with falsehood. The seventh or satya level has consciousness of pure truth where supreme spirit and devas reside. Okay. Now, these are all the ingredients. So, what are the ingredients? There is a supreme spirit, the cosmic energy that everyone knows, that how people in the wilderness, the trees, the animals, where do they get their energy? The same spirit gives that energy to the before humans came, the amoebas, many of those, uh, all those creatures, everything is energy is given by the supreme. So there is a supreme, there are sub energies, are called supreme is called the Purusha in the Purusha Sutta. Sahasrajirsha Purusha Sahasraksha Sahasrabad Sabomim Vishwado Vritva Atyadishtad Dashangulam Purusha Evedagam Sarvam. Purusha Eva Idagam Sarvam. Everything here is this Purusha. Everything here is this energy. That is what Rig Veda says. Purusha Sukta 10.90. So, Purusha Evedagam Sarvam Yad Bhudam Yad Chabhavyam. It knows the past, the present, everything. So, there is this Supreme Spirit along with the sub energies with the different, they have the powers of the Supreme. At the same time, they have the psychological powers, willpower, divine mind, then motivational spirit, Mitra, Varuna, friendship, Maitri, Bhava, all those things. There are various devas. Then the Prithivya Saptadhami, there are 7 levels. Now comes the clinching statement of Sri Aurobindo. What does he say? Human beings live in earth level. We are living in this earth level where the consciousness level is truth mixed with falsehood. So, since we are living in a consciousness level that is truth mixed with a falsehood, we are subject to death. So, it is very straightforward, a very analytical question we can ask. So, how to rise beyond this death? Simple. Human beings must turn from falsehood to truth. We cannot go to these dhamas by buying a ticket in a physical manner. You can only by rising in consciousness level, only you can get to that place. So Aurobindo says, to rise beyond that, human beings must turn from falsehood to truth, must turn to light. So how does the falsehood go? Falsehood is associated with darkness. All of us have the darkness in us, our Shadribhus, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. So that is the falsehood that each of us come with. Maybe some of us have less of it, more of the truth, but as long as we live in this truth mixed with falsehood, there are some falsehood. So how do we, falsehood is associated with the darkness, the sattvic is associated with the light, so that is truth. So how do you remove the darkness or falsehood? We must turn to truth. How do we turn to truth? By inviting the devas. How? By conducting yajnas and understanding the inner meaning, which is a calling of the devas or powers of light. This gives rise to formation of divine nature by listening to, inviting these devas again and again and again, continuously, by having a regular, disciplined manner doing these mantras, then that divine nature will come. The falsehoods will start drop out. Say, for example, all of us know that we get angry, even though we may not get angry to our friends. If we talk to our spouse, we know when the other member gets angry. Whenever things don't go their way, they get angry. But you cannot, you can do meditate in a corner, but the anger may or may not go. But if you invite these devas, you can see the anger slowly dropping out of you by itself because the light comes and the darkness will go. So you rise in consciousness. So that's the wisdom in the Vedas. This is the key. It is not just the karma kanda and the yajna as a ritual for this. Aurobindo brought out this. And of course, Kabali Shastri, the spirituality and wisdom, that is his central contribution to, in a practical sense, to the chanters of Vedas and to encourage all our youngsters to chant Veda. This is Kabali Shastri and Professor Kashyap. All Veda mantras have been translated. Then Professor Kashyap wrote over 35 plus books. I have written 2 books, as Makarand Paranjave said in the books. All these are made to make it easy. So the spiritualization is done by chanting mantras, continuous chanting. So the divine words will plant the emanation, and over a period of time, you develop that nature. From Diksha initiation by my father at the age of 11, we had a family Shiva Puja. And my father, this was the time when immediately after independence, where Sardar Patel was bringing all these small states headed by Rajas together, the Cochin and Travancore. My father was working for the Kochi Maharaja's office in Tripunithura. So suddenly, 1949, first Cochin and Travancore, the 2 Maharajas were combined together, and my father's job disappeared. Kochi Maharaja disappeared, and the Travancore Raja became the Raj Pramukh of these 2 states. My father was transferred to Trivandrum, 150 miles away. So here, there is a family Shiva Puja. So he said, I'm going to have an initiation for you, and I'm going to give you a crash course on to do Shiva Puja for the next 2-3 weeks. I will be gone. I'll come only once a month from Trivandrum. So when I was studying in 6th grade in school, from that time onwards, I'm doing the family Shiva Puja for the next 6 years. And then I went to engineering college and all that. Then until after settling down, I continued that. Usually when you go to engineering college, you drop everything. But maybe for whatever reason, I continued that. And this Veda practice has helped me in my studies from high school in Tripunithura, Kerala State, India, to PhD in USA, to NASA scientist role, to engineering serial 2 or 3, this thing. And more than that, there is a harmony and calmness in whatever I approach. I was not like this maybe 30 years ago or 40 years ago, but over the years. So I can testify that anyone who comes to practice this Vedic chanting and Vedic yajna, they will benefit by this. Now, unfortunately, what happened was the split of Samhita and Veda mantra and yajna is only for uh, rituals and material prosperity. The divide happened between Vedantic saints and Vedic rishis, and they all said, and also to make matters good or bad, they said there is a Chaturvida Palapurushartha Siddhyartham. In all our yajnas, we say, in all our functions, we say Chaturvida Vada, the Chaturvidam Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. And moksha, liberation, is what we should do. Then you don't have to take birth and all that. And they quote the example of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and Ramana Maharshi and Nisargadatta Maharaj. And of course, everyone wants to. But you can get to liberation. But if everyone drops everything and goes to renunciation, then who will continue the do the work in the world? You will raise the next generation of people, teach your children. So there is I am putting it in 2 slides on side by side, where we go after moksha and renunciation, enjoyment. All work is bondage. Vedantic saints say work is only bondage by one's attachment. And Vedantic says they don't want rebirth. Rebirth is for continuing education. Do minimum work, and you sit in the corner, meditate, because work leads you to bondage. That is Vedantic saints. So don't do any work. Work to your maximum capacity. improve. That is what Vedic Rishis say. Liberation or moksha? No, the goal is spiritualization. You lead a spiritual life. It doesn't mean that you have to wear this ochre robes or this color robes and all that. You can continue whatever you are doing. You can be a NASA scientist. You can be a homemaker. You can be a computer professional. You can be a accountant. It does not matter. Whatever work you do, you devote, uh, if you have few minutes, you have half hour, whatever time for the chanting the mantra, invite the devas, and then say, you stay here, I have to do other work, I'll come and talk to you next day morning. Once you do that, you lead a spiritual life, your consciousness will rise. And when you rise in consciousness level, you can see the task at hand at a much quickly with the clarity. That is how the success comes. So all-round perfection, and that is what Vedic Rishi is. So basic and universal, follow Vedic Rishi's view, learn the Vedas, spiritualize one's life. Sri Aurobindo says, Veda is the beginning of our spiritual knowledge. Veda will remain its end, not to the renunciation of life, but to life in the world and among men. So need of our times, the Living Veda conferences, one in Bangalore last year, 2023, and two in Jaipur, have helped promote Sri Aurobindo, Kabali Shastriyar, and Professor Kashyap, and my publications. Sanatana Dharma way of life with Vedic education is the need of our time. And my suggestion and request to all these organizers, and in particular, I name the three gentlemen, even Dr. Ajit Sabnis in his final statement called out for Magaran Paranjabe, who coined this Living Veda concept, and Aurobindo Society and Sakshi. All three of them together have conducted these two conferences. And we have now fully as much detailed information of Sri Aurobindo's work in a theoretical sense. Now our next stage is to promote this practically, the Karmakanda and Yajnas as rituals categorization, which was prevalent until the top of the 20th century and continues to prevail among those who have not understood Aurobindo's teachings. Whereas the few of us who have understood Aurobindo's teachings, or at least read and reread, we may not have completely we may never completely understand what that great saint intended by the book in Srikata, but we have at least grasped a small fraction to say that it is not the Karmakanda and Yajnas ritual categorization done by until the 20th century. We went in search of this and we learned all this because of that. So that must give way, that must yield to Aurobindo's rediscovered spirituality and wisdom in the Vedas. The Living Veda organizers, Aurobindo Society, Sakshi, Magaran Paranjabe, and now the Jaipur team, the Central Sanskrit University, the Udaipur, the Jaipur Aurobindo Society branch, I mean, all over, are requested to take the lead to organize these Vedic education classes all over the country. Just like the Vedanta classes are available, there's nothing wrong when you have studied these Vedas and you have started spiritualizing your life. You do your task by rising in consciousness into that, and then you want to pursue moksha. That is fine too. Then you go and attend to the Vedanta classes. But the start should not be the Vedanta classes. The start must be with the Vedas, as Aurobindo has said. With this, I conclude this talk and I give you 15 minutes for questions and answers, Margan, as you asked.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I think we'll take the questions after the second paper, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that last year as well, Dr. Narayan Swami had joined us and blessed us, and we look forward to your continued support. And Dr. Narayan Swami is himself starting a trust for Sanatana Dharma in Los Angeles. But the important thing I feel that he pointed out is how Sri Aurobindo brought back the spiritual and the wisdom component of the Vedas, which earlier people thought was only for Karma Kanda. And there's a wonderful line in Sri Aurobindo where he says that Shankara admits that the source of Brahma Vidya is the Vedas. And yet, he says that for Karma Kanda, you do the Vedas, but for Gyan Marg, you go to the Prasthanatrayi. So Sri Aurobindo has a line which says that this is the source of the schizophrenia of the Indian mind. And I think it is Sri Aurobindo who has helped us heal this schizophrenia, as it were, by bringing the Karma Kanda and Gyan Marga back together and foregrounding the Vedas as a book of wisdom, spirituality, and as Dr. Narayana Swami said, a book of great power, because when you invite the Devas into your life, you feel your own life changing. And thank you, sir. I just wanted to say one more little thing. Yesterday, Alok Bhai was talking about living the Veda, but in the English language, living Veda, living is a gerund. So it means वेदों को जीना भी और जो जीवित वेद है तो दोनों अर्थ आ जाते हैं लिविंग वेदा का में लिविंग द वेदा भी आता है और वो वेद जो अभी भी जीवित है उन वेदों तक हम पहुंचे so I feel that Dr. Narayan Swami embodies this idea. He's connected with the living Veda, but he's also living the Veda, in his life. As you heard him, he practices every day. And in his own Los Angeles community, he's teaching Sanskrit and mantras to youngsters, which we are not able to do in India. He has already started doing in the United States. So to my left is Alok Bhai, who runs the Sri Aurobindo Society of Jaipur. Wonderful people, great hospitality. To my left is Dr. Ripunjay Singh, the brother of Dr. Parikshit Singh, our next speaker. I'm going to introduce him in a moment. We have other wonderful participants here. We have Dr. Jagirdar from Sakshi. We have Dr. Ajit Sabnis and many, many great scholars. Dr. Renuka Rathod, I won't call her the mistress of ceremonies, but she's really the master of ceremonies. She's kept everybody with her whip in order. So we are very grateful to everyone here. And we will now move to the second speaker, Dr. Parikshit Singh. I'm proud to say is from this very city, Jaipur. His elder brother is sitting here. And
Very good.
he is,
My
he got
one
his,
word, my pronouns to all of you for organizing this, because by spreading this message, we have got it for so many years. The Karmakanda and Yajnas as rituals, that is there. It is very, very, it is not easy, let me put it that way positively, to say that it is a spiritual document. And just to add one statement to what Magaranji was saying, perhaps even by Adi Shankara's time, the Karmaganda specialists already are deeply, we are following the Mimamsakas were saying that this is the phala, that is what they are doing. And they even, when Sovar is saying that the mantras that are not used there have no value. So maybe Adi Shankara was trying to play a middle game, we don't know. Anyway, so that's just an addition to what Arabindo brought out. But whatever reason, we have to spend the message that Veda is a spiritual document. It has wisdom. And that message has to go. And pronouns to all of you for organizing this conference and giving this chance.
Thank you, sir. Please stay on. We will have a Q&A after Dr. Parikshit Singh's talk. I want to mention that he wrote a wonderful book called The Veda Made Simple. I think copies are available for distribution. Everybody here, all the scholars are going to get a copy. I hope the copies are ready. In fact, we should distribute them at the end of this session itself, if possible. He got his medical training from Jaipur to begin with, and then he went to the United States. He was a resident in New York, and then he and his wife, Dr. Maria Scanziano Singh, they moved to a very small place in Florida called Spring Hill and started Access Healthcare Physicians about 20 years ago. It now takes care of about 65,000 patients in that underrepresented area in Florida. Please give him a big hand. Parikshit ji is not only a wonderful doctor and a very compassionate human being, he's a wonderful poet in Hindi and English. And he has written several books on Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo and the Renaissance of India was one of the books he's written. And a very important book called The Age of Sri Aurobindo. which I have read because I have the privilege of working with him. He's actually my boss, and he and he has let me come all the way to India to participate in this yajna of the Veda. So thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us. And it's very late at night in Florida. It's after 10 o'clock, but he's staying up to address us. And the important thing about his talk is that he looks at Sri Krishna himself as an interpreter of the Veda. You can see that in the Bhagavad Gita. It was mentioned yesterday by some of our speakers, but he will now show us how Sri Krishna also saw the Veda as a book of wisdom and also as a book of practice, because Sri Krishna helps to explain the inner significance of the yajna. Over to you, Dr. Singh.
Namaste, pranam. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The only thing you have to watch, Makaranji, is my time. So I don't know how much time I have. 10 minutes, okay?
I think 10, 15 minutes is fine, sir. We'll take Q&A.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, raise your hand if you want me to speed up and stop. Just kind of give me a hint. So Makaranji said, I am his boss, but I've never considered myself his boss because we have the same boss. And so that way we are both blessed. We take inspiration from Sri Aurobindo and the mother, and hopefully we try to follow their inspiration. And to them is at least everything that I know, the little bit that I know, I'm sharing. So it's a great feeling to be part of a very elite group of speakers, thinkers, darshaniks, philosophers. And my humble submission here is to start seeing Sri Krishna's contribution to the interpretation of the Veda, which is, I believe, the inspiration for future Vedic learning. And of course, Sri Krishna was the guide for Sri Aurobindo, which he acknowledged. And Sri Aurobindo had noted to Subramanyam Bharati that the Veda was revealed to him in the new light. But he's also written a beautiful commentary, Essays on the Gita, which brings out the enormous influence and the significance of the meaning of the Veda and the Yajna in the Gita. So let's talk about how we have reached this schizophrenia about the Veda, as Makaranji noted earlier. There are two lines of interpretation of the Veda, as we all know, unfortunately heavily weighted in terms of seeing Veda as ritualism. And this split started probably very early on, when the Mimansaks, including famous names like Jaimini, considered Vedas as significant for their sound value, which of course they have. But so important is their sound value, or was the sound value to them, they said, you don't even have to know the meaning. You just have to know the sound, do the kalpa, do the rituals, know the chanda, know the nirukta, and you're good. Know the siksha, which is the right pronunciation. This tradition continued much later, and we see the famous exegesis by Sayana, who basically brought out the external aspect, the exoteric aspect of the Veda. And now modern Western interpreters, writers, critics, they also see the Veda as primarily an external document, a document of rituals. However, the Vedas themselves have quite a few sections where they talk about themselves, and they talk about a different way of looking at the Veda. And my purpose is not to talk about that. In the Upanishads, the Vedas are quoted with great reverence. And in my book, I have shown at least 11 such references, and there are more where the Vedas are quoted directly or they are honored in the Upanishads. So this tradition, the second tradition, of seeing the Veda as a great repository of spiritual knowledge has continued. Then, of course, comes the great work of the Gita, inspired by Sri Krishna, a legendary author for which was Veda Vyasa. But Vyasa only means a compiler, one who puts it together. Who wrote it? We don't really know, but we believe, and those who can see it, it's inspired by Sri Krishna. Whoever the poet was, whoever put it together, must have been a very faithful scribe who took the inspiration of Sri Krishna and created the monumental work that embodies Sri Krishna's vision, his sound body of consciousness, and his wisdom, and his integral vision. Now, what does Sri Krishna do? And when we read Sri Krishna, there's only 700 shlokas in the Gita. We have to be very careful. There are very interesting characteristics. If we look at Sri Krishna not as an avatar, here I'm trying to see Sri Krishna as a darshanik, as a human being who came on earth and who lived like us and created something great for us. How did he see the Vedas? So that in our human terms, we can understand. And even an avatar comes as a human. Avatar does not bring all the magical lights of the higher worlds. They live as human. They take on the challenges as human, and they address them as human beings. So Sri Krishna has 3 chapters, chapter 2, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, the 3 adhyayas, in which he talks about the Veda primarily. In the first one, and instead of giving you a talk of what he describes, I'll just read 3 shlokas to you, one from each chapter, and then we'll try to analyze and see how Sri Krishna works. So the first one is 2.45, chapter 2, chapter 2nd, 45th shloka. And when I read it, I try to chant it because it's in Anushtup Chanda. I try to chant it so that you get the sound significance of Sri Krishna's consciousness and you can enjoy his presence. Because the sound for us carries the consciousness of the great yogis and the rishis. So it goes like this. Traigunya Vishaya Vedaha Nistraigunyo Bhavarjuna Nirdvandvo Nityasattvasthaha Niryogakshema Atmavan. What is Sri Krishna saying? Very basically, Sri Krishna says the Vedas deal with the 3 gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. You, Arjuna, have to go beyond the 3 gunas. Be without duality, established in the truth. Do not join yourself to anything. Do not look for any benefit. Just be full of the Atman, Atmavan. Be conscious of that pure consciousness that is your Atman. Now, it almost seems like he's criticizing the Vedas. But we have to be careful with Sri Krishna. Because Sri Krishna brings in very interesting things. He throws an idea, and then he develops it. He comes back to it in the next chapter. Then he reforms it. He widens it. He'll bring another opposing idea to it. Then he'll harmonize it. So let's go to the chapter 3rd and see what he says. I've taken the shloka, which is another very beautiful shloka, 3.15. And again, let's just see how his great mind works. Karma brahmodbhavam vidhi brahmakshara samudbhavam tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yagye pratishtitam. Now here, he's saying something entirely different. It almost seems like he's contradicting himself. He says that karma that we do comes out of the Brahma itself. And Brahma comes out of the Akshara, which is the Om, the unmanifest, the Avyakta. And therefore, he says, this Brahma that is Sarvagata, that is all pervading, that has gone everywhere, establishes itself in Yajna. Now here he seems to be describing either an external aspect of yajna or an internal aspect of the yajna. And we have to be very conscious of how Sri Krishna plays with it. And the third one, which is a very interesting take, because if you look at the second one, karma brahmo the bhavan vidhi, there is Brahma, brahmakshara samudbhavam, again Brahma in the second pada, tasmat sarva gatam brahma, in the third pada also of the Anushtup, you have Brahma. Brahma repeated 3 times, but he hasn't had his fill. Now listen to the shloka, the third shloka from 4th chapter, 24th shloka. And this is a very interesting shloka. Brahmarpanam brahma havihi. Brahmagnau brahmanahutam. Brahmeva tena gantavyam. Brahma karma samadhina. Brahma is the giving in this yajna. Brahma is the havi, what is going in. Brahma is the fire. And brahmanahutam, the very act of giving. Brahmeva tena gantavyam. From Brahman itself comes this yajna, which is the yajna of karma samadhi. It is Brahma karma. Now, this is a very interesting interpretation of the yajna. In the second chapter, it almost looked like he was criticizing the Veda. But what he was criticizing was an external approach to the Veda, where Veda is meant for bhoga aishwarya, as he says. We try to get something out of the Veda. What are we trying to get out of the Veda? We're trying to get go, we're trying to get ashva, we're trying to have victory, we are trying to have children, we're going to try to have swarga, a beautiful life. But as Sri Aurobindo has pointed out, and later we can talk about, these are all symbols. The Gau is a symbol of something else, which is the light of truth. The Ashva is tapas shakti. Victory is victory over darkness. But Sri Krishna doesn't go into that. Sri Krishna criticizes fiercely the very attempt to see Veda as a transactional shastra, where you recite it and you get these things in return. That is being stuck in the 3 gunas. And he tells Arjuna, go beyond it. However, if you really start understanding, in the final shloka that I just chanted, Brahmarpanam Brahma Havihi, Brahmagnau Brahmanahutam. Brahman is the fire. Brahman is the act of giving. The giver is the Brahman, and what is being given to is the Brahman. Now he has transformed the symbol of the yajna into something that is a spiritual experience, where everything is the Brahman. And so what Sri Krishna has beautifully done is brought the Vedic insights into Vedanta. What he has done is he has criticized the external approach that people take towards the Veda in the 2nd chapter, where it almost looks like he's rejecting the Veda. But what he's rejecting is not the Veda per se, but our approach to the Veda, which is almost a commercial, business-like approach. And what he has brought us to is the spiritual insight into the symbolism of the Veda. And there is more. He talks about the various Agnis, Sanyam Agni, Indriya Agni. He talks about different Sanyam Agni is a way of controlling the Indriyas, the senses. And he talks about what these Agnis mean. Again, a very symbolic interpretation. So what we can see from here is, if we really go deep into what Sri Krishna is saying, he's not here as a philosopher. He is giving a manual, a practical manual to Arjun in the midst of war. But what he has taken is the essence of the Veda the spiritual essence and brought it to a higher level in his reinterpretation, in that yuga, and he has brought them together. He has brought Veda and Vedanta together. He has brought Sankhya and Yoga together. He's brought Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga together. This was his genius because he was an integrator. He did not leave truth in whatever form it came, but he brought them all in one vast vision because he was a multi-dimensional being. When we come to Sri Aurobindo, we see a similar interpretation for our age. Sri Aurobindo is not going to repeat what Sri Krishna said, nor is he going to repeat what the Veda said. He reinterprets it in the light of his own great spiritual realizations and makes it available to all of us. The living truth of the Veda, the living truth of the Upanishads, the living truth of the Gita, Sri Aurobindo brings it out, and they become real and direct for us. So I think that should be, I don't know if I have reached my time limit, but that is all a very brief approach. So when we hear a criticism of Swami Dayananda Saraswati or Sri Aurobindo by the modern thinkers, we must remember that before all this was the great Darshanik, great Mahayogi, the avatar, Sri Krishna, who himself interpreted the Veda, albeit in very few shlokas, not more than even 24 shlokas, but in that he has taken the essence of the Veda and given it to us, almost like a summary. This is the summary, take it. In 700 shlokas, I've taken the knowledge of 10,000 verses of the Veda. I've taken 108 Upanishads, all the knowledge in 700 shlokas here. I know where the world is going. You guys are going to be very practical, very external. Here it is, take it. He has summarized it for us, made it easy for us. That is at least how I take it. And it is a very interesting learning when you look at Sri Krishna's interpretation. And it takes away a lot of cobwebs of the mind, because we Indians kind of trust what the Western mind says. If someone's has a nice little ending to their name, we listen to them more than to our great minds and geniuses. I think that post-colonial mindset, we need to go beyond and start looking at our own genius. And if you really go deeper into the modern science of semiology, the signs, how we interpret language itself nowadays, we can study the Veda and understand deeper layers of meaning that our great yogis and teachers have brought out for us. And the more research we can do into this, the more we write about it, the more we kick the tires, question it, go with an inquiring mind. Don't just accept everything that is coming. But that is the modern tendency, which is okay. Question everything and then see the truth for yourself, which will be the living truth of you, which will be the living truth of the Veda. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Singh, for that really brilliant exposition. I think that both the papers have shown us a corrective to two kinds of misconceptions. The first paper by Dr. Narayana Swami showed us that there is no divorce between work and moksha. And those who twisted or distorted the Indian spiritual tradition as being only about moksha, calling the world an illusion, the illusionism, jo Mayavad kehte hain, that was one distortion of a very rich civilization which had attained high levels of excellence in all fields of endeavor at a certain time. So that false dichotomy between moksha or liberation, mukti, and work in the world, Dr. Narayan Swami helped us to overcome that false dichotomy. And what Dr. Singh has done is he has shown through Sri Krishna that the Veda is not empty ritualism, nor is the yajna transactional. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because the other criticism against the Indian tradition is that Buddhism, Jainism were reactions against the empty ritualism of the Vedas, which is not correct. In fact, uh, this Rajasthan is the land of great Jain thinkers. Many great kings, in fact, they took to Jainism because they were tired of the violence, perhaps. But Vedas are not empty ritualism, nor are they mere transaction, nor is later Indian thought, including Buddhism, Jainism, a reaction to the Veda, and the Veda therefore needs to be rejected. Similarly, we have seen that the Vedas should not be rejected as the babblings of primitive tribes, which is what the Europeans thought of them. So we have seen how in this conference we are providing this corrective to the distortions of our tradition, which is continuous and still living. There's one more thing I wanted to bring out, that when we appreciate what Sri Aurobindo did, I mentioned yesterday that he unlocked this door, Hiranyagarbha. He gave us the key to the higher realms of consciousness. It's very important also to note that all the so-called great European and American and British scholars of the Veda do not even mention Sri Aurobindo. I pointed out how even Dr. Radhakrishnan rejects Sri Aurobindo's interpretation. So Jamie, and Joel Brereton, who have translated the Rig Veda into English, if you look at their work cited, their bibliography at the end, Stephanie Jameson and Joel Brereton, Oxford University Press, they took 8 years to do that, but they don't even mention Sri Aurobindo. Forget about Kapali Shastri, forget about Dr. R.L. Kashyap. So there is again this big split that most of the Western scholars do not even mention Sri Aurobindo. So we have to correct that. We have to show them how important Sri Aurobindo's approach to the Vedas is. So we have these 3 correctives: no divorce between work and liberation, no divorce between yajna as, you might say ritualism, but yajna as the self-offering for the highest spiritual growth and transformation, which is what Sri Krishna shows us, and no divorce between the Western approach, the philological, historical, critical, etc., and the Indian approach as represented by Sri Aurobindo. So with these remarks, we have about 29 minutes, maybe 28, because I want 1 minute for this book. I want everybody to see this book, and we will do it at the end. I would request Dr. Ripunjay Singh to present a copy of this book to Alok Bhai, to the representative of the Central Sanskrit University, the professor on my right, and also to Renukaji. We'll do it right at the end. So now let's have a Q&A. I request people, please don't make lectures, don't give, everybody here is very wise. And as the moderator, I will, with folded hands, stop you if you're going to make a long intervention. Please ask a question. In fact, I want to say that सवाल पूछने की भी कला है जो हमको सीखनी चाहिए, है ना? सिर्फ टिप्पणी देना और लंबे लंबे अपने भाषण देना, ये तो हम जानते हैं, वो खूब ही जानते हैं, लेकिन एक अच्छा सवाल पूछना भी आसान नहीं है. इसके लिए भी एक, आई वुड कॉल इट, इंटेलेक्चुअल मस्कुलैरिटी की जरूरत है. तो प्लीज मेरा आग्रह आपसे है और दरख्वास्त भी है, प्रार्थना भी है कि आप सवाल पूछिए. Thank you. I think Shushruth ji has a question.
Namaste. Am I audible? Yes, sir. Namaste to everyone. I would like to ask a question to Dr. Parikshit Singh ji. First of all, very thankful for this beautiful connection between Krishna and the Veda, and I think Krishna and Sri Aurobindo became one in Alipur. We know that. But I had it is not like a question, but I would like to hear a few words from Parikshit ji about this. Like Shastra, Veda, where a lot of opposites are brought together, but how Sri Aurobindo says even the opposites are true. So just 2 shlokas I would like to hear if Parikshit ji would like to give few comments on that. May I just quote them? Yes, so one is actually in the second adhyay, where Yavan Artha Udapanir Sarvatah Samplutodake Tavan Sarveshu Vedeshu Brahmanasya Vijanatah. This is the 46th shloka of the second adhyay. One more place, Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te. That is the 16th adhyay, last shloka. कार्य vyavasthitau jnatva shastra vidhanoktam karma kartum yarhasi. So once he talks about transcending the Vedas also, and also he speaks that he's not contradicting the Shastra. He's asking Shastra to become the Pramana. So if sir, if you would like to share some words, I would love to hear, sir. Yes, please. That is also.
So thank you for bringing that out. This is Sri Krishna's style. And in fact, the next book that I'm trying to write or have written, which Makaranji is trying to edit, is trying to show how the structure of Gita brings out these various ideas. And in fact, I've also often called Sri Krishna as a master musician. Just like a musical piece, one brings in an idea, a note is brought, like a symphony, a note is brought in, and then it's developed a little bit, and then the master musician brings in another note, another sura comes, and he develops that. Then he goes back to the old note and he brings it up. Again, he develops it like a point counterpoint. And this creates a beautiful symmetry, a beautiful symphony. And every chapter, Sri Krishna takes and builds up on the idea. So in fact, if you look at the third chapter, the third shloka, Sri Krishna says there are two ways to reach the truth. One is Sankhya Yoga, one is Karma Yoga, right? Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam, Karma Yogena Yoginam. At the end, in the 18th chapter, 66th shloka, he says, abandon all this and just come to me. Now, is he contradicting himself? No, when a genius has a mind that is vast, and Sri Aurobindo called it the overmind, which is a global mind. It has so much, and so the genius brings in one note, leaves it for us to dwell on, then he brings another note, and then as they develop, you will see how they come together, they separate, and it's actually a great development for the mind. Yava nartha udapane sarvatas samplutodake. The one who knows the Brahma, to him, it's like having a deluge bar and have water. What is the significance? So it almost seems like he's downplaying the value of the Veda in this beautiful shloka. And yet, later he'll say, among the Vedas, I am Samaveda. He's beautifully said that. Which one is true, Sri Krishna? Are you saying both things at the same time? But Sri Krishna intrigues our mind. Sri Krishna is not a logician. Sri Krishna is working on our consciousness and expanding our awareness. So we can hold multiple opposing thoughts, conflicting, contradicting thoughts, and find the unity of them. This is a mind that could bring Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga together. Even today, we have such a hard time. When sannyas, we want to leave the world. Even today, India is afflicted with this. And Sri Krishna gave us the answer, how many, 5,000, 6,000 years ago. So to understand what kind of a genius this is, what kind of a multidimensional consciousness it is, if we read the Gita, and if we see all these different shlokas, you don't get tied up with one. Bring them together and hold them together in your dharana, and something beautiful will emerge. As Sri Aurobindo himself said, the day I realized that if one fact is true and the opposite of it is true, I realized that day that my mind was free of its limitations. So I'll stop here. Thank you for bringing those shlokas out. Beautifully pointed.
Thank you. I'll invite Dr.
Ma-
Narayan Swami also to say a word. I just wanted to say one thing before you come in, Dr. Narayan Swami, which is that, you know, in the Sri Aurobindonian approach, we often come across this, the obstacle of the mind, because the mind does not seem to be able to contain two opposing ideas together. And Keats called it negative capability. So you have to, what Sri Krishna is doing, it seems to me, and Sri Aurobindo does it all the time, he's triggering the mind to go beyond the mind by holding apparently opposite ideas. But it's a way for you to go beyond the mind and to transcend the mind. And one more footnote, Dr. Singh has talked about briefly his new book. It's called The Literary Genius of the Gita. And paradox, जो विरोधाभास हम कहते हैं, ये एक साहित्य का महत्वपूर्ण भाग है. And you see Sri Krishna playing with this. So I hope this book comes out soon. We are looking for the proofs of this book. And those of you who like his approach to the Gita, because he's an autodidact, he's taught himself. He has a Gita class every Saturday morning at 9. Please join in. We can send the links later. Dr. Narayan Swami, you had a
I
comment.
just wanted to add one point in respect to that question, because he pointed out the 16th chapter of the 21st sloka, Shastra Disha, because the title of that chapter, I want to make a very simple point to, along with the various excellent points Parikshit ji and Bhagwan ji has added. I just want to say that chapter title is Daivasura Sambat Vibhaga Yoga. Logesmin Divida Prokta, Devi Sambat, Asuri Sambat. That's exactly what Veda says, Devas and Dasyus. That is what our Purana says, Devas and Asuras. And Krishna says, Devi Sambat and Asuri Sambat. Abhayam, Sattva Samshuddhi, and he describes the first three grades. When I teach yoga, I used also teach not at the level that Parikshit thinks, but to my students of Veda and all that I say, there are in the first three slokas 26 characteristics. Abhayam, Sattva Shuddhi, and in the first three slokas, 26. And someone will ask, what if I have only 10 of the 26? I said, 25 out of 26 will not count. 26, then you belong to Devi Sambat. Otherwise, from sloka 4 onwards, Adri Sambat. So he describes both, and then towards the says, there is Shastra Buddhishya. That is what there was. You get the truth and light for you, so can write together. That this is so. So because of the chapter title itself is Daivasura Sambat Vibhoga, Devas and Dasyus, Devas and Asuras, and Devi and Asuri Sambat. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you, sir. And the struggle continues to this day. Professor Sharma, go ahead.
Good morning to everybody. My sincere thanks to Paranjapeji. We often listen the words Veda and Vedanta. They are not different from each other. Vedanta is part of Veda. Mantra Brahmanayor Vedana. Yeah, that's what I am going to do.
Your mic.
Yeah, it is on.
Okay.
It is on. Especially when I heard to revered Professor Krishna Swamiji, then I wanted to have a clarification from him. That's why I am putting a prefacing note, prefacing word. Mantra and Brahmana put together form the Veda, and they are not contrary to each other. Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda both are the chapters of one book. So, Karma Kanda can be performed to attain Chitta Shuddhi, which helps us to gain moksha. Kurvanne hacha, why one should...
Got the question.
Yes.
Dr. Narayan Swami, please answer.
One word I wanted to.
Okay, very quickly.
So there are two words we find in Bhagavad Gita, Vedanta Krit Ved Videva Chaham.
Huh.
So one is Ved with and the other is Vedanta Krit. And Shri Krishna says, I am both. So
Please, both will answer first, Dr. Narayan Swami, then Dr.
Yes,
Parikshit.
yes. You see, I do not disagree with the questioners at all that the Veda contains the so-called Vedanta. I am not disputing that at all. They are not two different at all. But what I am trying to tell you is that the conventional wisdom today is now even then that Veda, you do this for Chitta Shuddhi and then you come for moksha. then you have, in the name of praising Veda, so that's all. Oh, for Chitta Shuddhi, I will get that also. If you want to come to hear moksha, that is objective. But Aurobindo says that you have got to live and the work. So the dichotomy, what is going on, conventionally established that this is for Chitta Shuddhi, Samhita and Brahmanas are for Chitta Shuddhi. So people are not, the educated people are not learning this Veda. Hey, Chitta Shuddhi, I am always, my Chittam is always Shuddhi. I can directly go to that. I don't need any doing this ritual to get any Chitta Shuddhi. I don't understand what this priest says and all that. So that is why we have to bring in that this Karma Kanda must be removed from the Veda. Veda is a spiritual document. Just like you define Vedanta, and Vedanta takes the spiritual and wisdom aspects of the Veda and highlights to those people who want to know that, whatever way you may call it. But under no circumstance you say Mantra and Brahmana, Samhita and Brahmana comes together is Karmakanda, that is for Siddhi. This line has made 90% of our elites to go away to get that Chitta Shuddhi. You may know, I agree, without Chitta Shuddhi, nobody will not be able to go that. But this rise in consciousness levels, and you can get to immortality simply with Veda alone. In fact, I may add here one additional statement, there is no word moksha in Veda, Samhita. So if you say Vedanta is from Veda, where does moksha come from? Veda doesn't talk about moksha. Veda talks about dharma, artha, kama. Only because these three are not in alignment, you get in this falsehood. And that is, I don't want to take all the time, but I think you got the sense in my reply.
But
Thank you, sir.
if
Thank
that
you.
is
Thank
the
you.
case,
No,
then
sir,
Oh.
please excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, please, there are other
and I want to thank
Sir,
Dr.
please.
Parikshit Singh ji. I want to thank him
Sir,
because I got.
So, Dr. Singh, can you please respond to Renuka ji, the brief point she raised about Vedakrit and Vedantakrit? The Vedavit and
No, I have no disagreement. What Dr. Swami said is absolutely the same way I see it. I think the artificial delineation of Veda as Karmakanda is a huge error, because Veda is a spiritual experience described in a language that we have a hard time relating to. But it is a very symbolic representation of a deep spiritual experience. And if it were not, then there would have been no Vedanta and no Gita. Shri Krishna takes the symbols of the Veda, Upanishads takes the symbols and brings it out what the Veda has brought. So we have somehow created an artificial thing that Veda is Karmakanda. Veda is not Karmakanda. Veda is Jnana. Veda is immense, tremendous riches, which actually we lost some of those riches. And Sri Aurobindo brought those riches back. That's all I have to say. I know I have so many questions.
I 100% agree with the Parikshit thing, and to close this argument, there is no other way. This Karmakanda, this thing is removing all our youngsters from even looking at it. Because its purpose is only for Chitta Shuddhi and material prosperity. No, I am materially prosperous without this. So why should I go? So this has brought so many consequences of the conventional wisdom. And even 100 years later, we are repeating that after Aurobindo. I can understand up to 1914, it is staying there because that is how the conventional wisdom and Sainacharya said. But for the first few years, Aurobindo's teachings have not spread around, we can understand. But 100 years after, and 2 years after this Living Veda conference, we must not use the word Karmakanda. We must say Veda is a spirituality and wisdom document. Then
Thank
we are
you, sir.
together, you study Vedanta, Jnana or Dhyan or Bhakti, whatever direction you want to go, that's up to you. But we must all agree that Veda Samhita is a spirituality and wisdom, and you divinize, spiritualize your life and continue this. And without knowing any of this, by chanting the mantra, I came in a reverse way and connected with Kashyap, and I understood the spirituality through Aurobindo's book.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We are short of time and I have seen 3 or 4 hands. So we are going to close this here. What we'll do is we will simply take the questions all together. And the gentleman first, then second, um, third, Kishorji second. Anuradha ji, I know who she is. Pandita ji, I was going to call her, but anyhow, third and last word is for Dr. Jagirdar. All of you, please ask your questions briefly, and then the 2 speakers will get about 2-3 minutes to answer both these, all the questions together. Thank you. Oh.
सर एक्सक्यूज मी माई सेल्फ महेश गर्ग मैं ये पूछना चाह रहा हूँ सामान्य भाषा में एक मेरा सिंपल प्रश्न है जो कृष्ण और अर्जुन का संवाद था जिस समय अर्जुन ने सरेंडर कर दिया था आई विल नॉट वार तो उस समय जो उसकी जो स्थिति थी अर्जुन की जो मेडिटेशन का जो कृष्ण भगवान ने जो उनको उपदेश दिए थे गीता का उस संदर्भ में मैं आज वर्तमान परिप्रेक्ष्य में जो एक फिजिकल मेंटल स्पिरिट जो सिजोफ्रेनिया पेशेंट्स होते हैं मैंने कहीं सुना है इस चीज को और जो मुमुक्षु होते हैं जो मोक्ष को प्राप्त करने वाले हैं उनके कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स में क्या डिफरेंट एंड सिमिलरिटीज है इसको थोड़ा सा स्पिरिचुअल वे में और उसमें क्लियर करें.
Thank you. So the question is the difference between the schizophrenics and the mumukshus.
My question is, in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Urdhva Moolam. So what is the symbolic meaning that why the roots of that eternal tree is upwards? And when Lord Krishna says this, is there any connection of that particular idea in any of the rigs from Rig, Yaju, Sam, Atharv? Is it connected with any of the Vedic consciousness or Lord Krishna is indicating to any of the hymns? That is my question actually.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Pandita Chaudhary.
So mine was not so much of a question, but a comment on the previous part of the Karma Kanda versus Jnana Kanda. So I just, because I've been working with the Vedas also for a while, and this is what I have come to understand about what Sri Aurobindo is intending with the words, etc., is that there is no either or. It is also Karma Kanda, it is also Jnana Kanda, depending on who is where at what level, they will understand it at that level. So I think we should be very careful, even as Sri Aurobindonians, not to relegate Sri Aurobindo to an only category. Because he acknowledges the entire thing. He just says that one has to look beyond the Karma Kanda and to acknowledge that the essence of the Veda lies in its spiritual part. But I think we have to be also very careful not to dismiss the Karma Kanda part of it, because that has its very important relevance for those who are at that level and require to do Karma Kanda, also because Karma Kanda has a benefit for the physical world as well. So doing a physical yajna benefits the environment, benefits many other things. So this is just a humble
Correct.
submission.
It's not either or, but it's to understand the deeper significance of Karma Kanda. Anyhow, Dr. Jagirdar, last point, and then the speakers will get 2 minutes each, and then we'll wind up.
My simple point is, if we accept the approach of interpreting the mantras in 3 ways, that is Adhibhautika, Adhidaivika, Adhyatmika. If we accept and if we agree with that, we should accept the Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda, because Yajna should have the same approach. So Yajna should have the approach of the Adhibhautika, Adhidaivika, and Adhyatmika. That is my point.
Thank you. I think this sums up really
sir.
beautifully
Sir,
the
just
whole issue.
Just a minute, sir. Myself, Sudesh Kumar Sharma, director from this institution. Sir, I didn't go through the whole of this conversation. No. Yeah. Unanswered, sir. My submission only is beyond Karmakanda and removing Karmakanda. It will raise a debate actually. So we should be prepared for debate, not simply removing the Karmakanda, because ज्ञानम भारः क्रियाम विना। हम तो इस मंत्र को लेकर के चलते हैं, सूत्र को लेकर के चले हैं। ज्ञान किस लिए चाहिए हमको? फिर ज्ञान व्हाट इज द एम ऑफ नॉलेज ओनली? तो बहुत सारी बातें हैं, वो डिस्कस नहीं हो सकती, टाइम कम है, लेकिन हमको कोई ना कोई एक लाइन चुननी पड़ेगी, क्योंकि फिर मुश्किल हो जाएगा कि दोनों जो स्ट्रीम्स हैं उनको साथ लेकर के चलना।
सही है सर, बिल्कुल
नहीं तो
सही। Please.
बियॉन्ड वाले अलग हो जाएंगे और ये वाले अलग हो जाएंगे।
जी, very good. 2 minutes each. No sir, time नहीं है. Okay, very short, 30 seconds.
इतना सा
Okay. He's from my university. He's from JNU. How can I stop him? Last word.
कल बोलते हुए मैंने एक मंत्र बोला था, ततो भूय इव ते तमु य उ विद्यायाम रताः। केवल ज्ञान मार्ग पर जाएंगे तो घोर नरक में जाएंगे, घोर अंधकार में।
जी, बिल्कुल।
इसलिए उससे श्रेष्ठकर है कर्म मार्ग, क्योंकि कर्म के 3 भाग कहे ना, कर्म, अकर्म और विकर्म। ये तीनों जानना जरूरी है। कर्म को छोड़ देंगे तो ज्ञान लेकर क्या करें? ज्ञान व्यक्ति तो अकर्मण्य हो जाएगा। इसलिए ध्यान के साथ कर्म तो आवश्यक है।
यही तो सर ने कहा था. Okay, 2 minutes to both the speakers. I'm sorry to be ungenerous with the time, but there's another session at 10 and we don't want to encroach into their time. Dr. Narayan Swami first.
If I have communicated a message that I am against Karmakanda or against Jnanakanda, no, that is not. I'm only trying to say that the Karmakanda to an ordinary person gets the meaning that you do the karma for this material prosperity along with that associated, and that is all. But it is much, much more, as one of the questioners said, that those who want to look at jnana, they can get jnana. But that is all known to a small group of people. But the large majority seems to in this divide. So therefore, in fact, how can I say Samhita must not include Karmakanda? Because it talks about yajna. Yajna has an external purpose and internal purpose. Everyone is not ready to go for inner meaning. There are only in a class of 100, you have this group, second group, third group. So for all the people, yajna means, and the person who tries to put a bread on the table, a priest says, you do this havan and that will get you a job, and he gets a job. To him, that's a karmakanda, that is okay. So I have no problem. But many of our elites are not coming to that. Therefore, we must keep on emphasizing. You can say karmakanda, yajna is there. If Veda talks about yajna, that is all what it says. In fact, Krishna Bhagavad Gita 3.9, what does he say? Sahayajna praja srishtva. At the very time of the first praja being created, he has created the yajna. He says, I think chapter 3.9 sloka or so. Sahayajna praja srishtva purovacha prajavadi. Anena prasavishidvam ishtakamaduk. This yajna is your ishtakamaduk. With that you prosper. So from that day on, so if you attribute that I am against karmakanda, no, not at all. Samhita talks about yajna. Samhita says, and I am writing a book on dharma and yajna, and says what are the yajnas you have to do. Darshapurnamasav, Vajpaya, so many yajnas described in Krishna Yajurveda, first kanda itself. So if you please do not attribute that I am against yajna. All Vedas, Rig, Yajur, everything talks about yajna. But by limiting this is for karma shuddhi, and then you come to us, we will teach you the moksha, and that is your aim. That takes away all our young minds. I have already my chitta shuddhi, I will go straight to Veda. The Veda is not being learned. So the harm is tremendously done, and we must try to remove that harm. That's all my message. I leave it to Parikshit Singh.
Dr. Singh, please.
So let's understand karma kanda. When we say karma kanda, we mean the ritual. It is not karma yoga. Shri Krishna is talking about karma yoga, coming together with jnana, coming together with bhakti as a triune path. So at no point one should understand, we're actually saying that karma and jnana and bhakti have to come together. When we say karma kanda, the significance is it is only an external significance. When you say Veda is only an external significance, then for an intellectual understanding of our whole culture, of our Sanskriti, of our Shastra, we are doing a harm if we limit ourselves that it is only Karma Kanda. If you want to do Karma Kanda, that's okay. But understand at least at some point that there is much more to it than Karma Kanda. Following these great visionaries like Sri Krishna and Sri Aurobindo, we don't reject anything. We are no one to reject anything. But understand there is a deeper possibility, a greater opportunity for everyone. And at least at an intellectual level, we should be able to recognize that the Veda is not just Karma Kanda. Veda is also Jnana Kanda. Veda is also Vedanta inherent. Veda has even the Gita in it. Although the Gita has its own unique flowering, each Shastra is unique, but we all draw our sustenance, our spiritual food, as it were, our spiritual oxygen from the Veda. So I think every question is valid. There is no separation, there is no fighting. You want to do Karma Kanda, no problems. But realize there is more to it than just Karma Kanda.
Exactly. Very well put. I think
Very well put.
we sometimes have a tendency to reduce a complex question into a simple binary. I don't think it was an either-or issue at all.
Yeah.
And if I were to, since we're out of time, if I were to summarize, the discussion and the message of both these excellent papers, it would be that the master of the yajna is also the Yogeshwara. You see, he's also the master of yoga and works. Since we're out of time, I just want to say something here. Very nice. I saw it in the statement of the Sri Aurobindo institutions, so that we see the spirit in which we are doing things. And this is from the mother. We do not fight against any creed, any religion. We do not fight against any form of government. We do not fight against any social class. We do not fight against any nation or civilization. We are fighting division, unconsciousness, ignorance, inertia, and falsehood. We are endeavoring to establish upon earth union, knowledge, consciousness, truth, and whatever we fight, whatever opposes the advent of the new creation of light, peace, truth, and love. So this is where we are coming from. We have no time for petty disagreements, and Sri Krishna was a great synthesizer, the great integral, avatar, and so is Sri Aurobindo. He gave us integral yoga. So with these words, I want to thank our very distinguished speakers from the USA. It's already 11:30 p.m. and Dr. Singh works these patients every day, and he's still up at night to share his thoughts. I'm very grateful. Thank you, Dr. Narayan Swami, who is more than 80 years old. He does his Karma Kanda every day. To try to tell him the importance of Karma Kanda is useless. He has been doing his puja, archana, and yajna every day. But he's doing it with the higher consciousness that it's not just transactional, but it's for transformation. Thank you, sir. Please stay for one more minute. I would now request Dr. Ripunjay Singh to please give a copy of this book of Dr. Parikshit Singh, first to our distinguished Vice Chancellor here, the director of this Sanskrit Sansthan, and one more book copy to Alok Bhai, Amod Bhai, sorry. And maybe now that we are mentioning Alok Bhai, please come, please come. Please, sir, aap bhi aiye.
I forgot to address that issue of schizophrenia and the mumukshu, but that would be for Alok Pandeyji to
You can
address.
quickly tell us while we hold up the book. That
R.D. Lang had said the schizophrenic drowns while the mystic swims. So I'll defer it to Alokji.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Have a good night, sirs. We are logging off. Bye-bye.
Nice
Namaste.
meeting you, Parikshit Singh. And
Namaste.
namaste ji. Namaste.
Namaste.